Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Carmine's Arena, a cultural gourmet of information, if you will, a feast for your mind and soul. And now, without further delay, the man, the myth, the maestro, Carmine Arena.
Greetings, and welcome once again to Carmine's Arena, site of contest and conflict, venue for and of resolution. Resolution in terms of focus, remedy, and commitment, both yours and mine, to the preservation, the propagation, and indeed the celebration of Western civilization. Over the years, my listeners have come to know that I am a crossword puzzle fanatic. Recently, the New York Times Sunday magazine supplement contained a brain teaser, which theme had to do with a hidden question you had to discover in order to achieve the solution to 6 responses to said question. Responses made by the likes of John F. Kennedy, Andre Malraux, Beethoven, Nietzsche, Emerson, and Yeats. Pretty darn good company indeed. My listeners also know that I am a fairly caustic critic of the Times and its political out-of-tune chimes. Yet other more cultural sections of this paper of record often enough ring out sounds that are sufficiently finer-tuned to engage my musician's ear and thus memorably resonate in my mind, my heart, and my soul, where these, my triad of companions, find need for some reason, not to mention occasional rhyme, if apt for the season. Now, what is that hidden question? Drum roll, please. Here now, the question asked, and I quote, "What is art?" Unquote. Such as it stands, that is a query which should engage every one of us to answer individually, thanks to its deeply personal significance, as you shall come to learn. John F. Kennedy's answer was somewhat tongue-in-cheek. He said, "Art is a great Democrat." Less partisan and less cloying, and more to the point, is the response made by the celebrated man of letters and art historian, Andre Malraux. "Art," said the Frenchman, "is a revolt against fate." We could spend days discussing that insight, but allow me to immodestly confess that I have forever longed to be a kind of chap who always knows more than the surface discloses. Having confessed that much, let me move on to the response made by Ludwig van Beethoven. "Art," said the great man, "is selfish and perverse." As well he knew, grappling with its unrelenting daily demands, as he ingeniously notated sheet after sheet of empty manuscript paper, filling them and producing for mankind's intoxication a cosmic body of sound, while writing at the same time in the very throes of profound deafness, creating composition after singular composition, competing with his only competitor, himself. The great and oft-quoted philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, retort to "what is art" was the one I most favor. He said, "Art is the proper task of life." Sounds simple, doesn't it? You can bet we'll come back to that one. Meanwhile, we have 2 more giants to quote. Let me see, where am I? At my age, advanced age, I sometimes am given to brain freeze. Yes, Ralph Waldo Emerson, our great American essayist and thinker, replied to the question, "What is art?" As follows, said he, "Art is a jealous mistress. So true, but not if you're a great lover. Brain freeze or no. And now we've come to our sixth and last quote, which satisfies now all the thematic clues to said New York Times Sunday Supplement's crossword. And that is the one by the great Irish poet and playwright William Butler Yeats, whose brilliant, all-encompassing retort to what his art was. Art is but a vision of reality. I suspect he meant reality as it could be. Now, if you stay tuned, you'll hear what my response is to this age-old question. For the question, what is art, is aptly central to the theme of this, my 91st episode of Carmine's Arena. And the right question, as oft-times stated by none other than Gertrude Stein, is far more important given our habitual weakness for the wrong answers. For the right question will soon entice and entrap the valid response, as also long ago understood wise old Socrates, whose method of questioning to arrive at truth is dubbed Socratic. Please be advised that I am not one who believes life must imitate art, but that we borrow the tools, aims, and dynamics of the art which reinforce experience we seek when we say, visiting great museums of art here and abroad. In some, that experience raises higher expectations about ourselves, our outlook, our meaning, or at least it should, for otherwise we've made aware that something is missing. As a classically trained musician, I was early besotted with the aesthetics that have come to characterize Western civilization and its bold emphasis on individuality and the individual's incontestable worth, which in turn inspired to create our culture. That ethos of the right to freedom, along with the deep and artful respect demanded of freedom's responsibilities to self and society, responsibilities too frequently misinterpreted to the degree that freedom becomes careless license, freedom reduced to defiance and indifference to judgment, pseudo-freedom reflective of its damaged, undisciplined loss of purity, purity reduced to licentious perversity and its promiscuous wanderings. I would say nomadic scatterbrain wanderings, nomadic tendencies and impulses would share a common deficit. What deficit, you may well ask? Well, it is simple. Nomads lack windows. Windows that look out on the mind minus the mischief of meandering motion. Like New Age tent strikers who scamper away from rooted traditions, rituals, and customs, meaning rules of behavior that cause us to have codes of conduct, which are our cultural preservatives, our window's bright sunlight, which shines upon reflective thought. Otherwise, as a predictable result, yesterday's vices become today's fashion. Sadly, each decade the collective craving has been for novelty, merely for novelty's sake. Have we not heard the incessant chant? It's the 60s, dude. It's the 70s, man. Don't you get it, bro? It's the 80s. Smack unto the new millennium, which hosts and boasts, hey, Bubba, it's the new normal. New normal being the euphemistic honeyed version of leave me alone. If you're an inveterate brat, it's my right if you're of a legal bent, though those misshapen of mind minus a soul. Or politicians who, but for statesmen, are no more nor less than ballot pimps. In case you have to be reminded of what the quality of a statesman is, it is the quality of heart and mind and soul which fully engages tomorrow and not the spur and splash of the moment. Allow me to grant you all this very topical example of statesmanship, which is both sage and visionary, and very much on point. Allow me to impart to you the words handwritten by our very own founding father, John Adams. Words inscribed in a letter to his wife, Abigail Adams, a great lady, great companion, and a woman of immense strength of mind and spirit. Abigail Adams, a kind of woman feminists can hardly imagine existing without their tiresome, up-to-date meddling. John wrote to Abigail, "I must study politics and war, that my sons may have the liberty to study mathematics and philosophy, geography, natural history, naval architecture, navigation, commerce, and agriculture, in order to give their children a right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, statuary, tapestry, and porcelain." Wow, say I, because as I proved in my last episode, wow is the sum of wonderment, originality, and the capacity to work. To endure for that one moment more, that moment when you can honestly say, I've become my only competitor. Clear is it not why Nietzsche's answer to the question, what is art, centuries later beyond Adams, meets our second president's vision with my all-time favorite Nietzschean response. I repeat again here, art is the proper task of life. And so it is, for art demands, in fact mandates, that its foremost task is to move towards perfection, even though one can never entirely achieve perfection except as an idea and/or Platonic ideal. Nevertheless, its task is to achieve and spite the unattainable via patient mastery of technique, density of detail, and evocative incisiveness. Art must most particularly shape the invisible, as does music. In fact, let me hastily add that all the arts, painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, drama, poetry, and photography too, each and every one beyond those enumerated, should and must aspire to the condition of music. Music loyally shapes the invisible. Otherwise, it would hardly have become the dependable key of and to love, not to mention its loftiness in reaching the very gates of heaven and God himself. Music teaches all the other arts to listen, to see with their ears, and to hear with their eyes. Man's gift for the synesthetic, that is the gift to exchange senses. Another case in point is the two-part task that the Israeli conductor and pianist Daniel Barenboim set for himself and young Israeli musicians, along with their peers and foes in Palestine. The task was to bring both camps together into one symphony orchestra, and in spite of the deep divide, listen to one another in performance, learning to produce beauty together. Yes, art is our task to produce and mutually prosper. It is uniquely proper to life, and Nietzsche understood this, as does Barenboim. Nietzsche very much wished to become a composer, but realized that that was not his strength. In fact, he formed as a young man an association with the great Richard Wagner, however you would like to pronounce it, with whom later he had a falling out. We'll discuss at another time this problem. However, Nietzsche's strengths were his thoughts in the realm of philosophy. Thoughts, however, expressed with a cogency of style as powerfully musical as he could make them. Anything powerfully musical becomes the quality of beauty. beauty personified. When I say powerfully musical, I mean to imply categorically music that is great as a consequence of fine art, not clever artifice. The latter is junk, best tolerated for short elevator rides. It is, too, what science becomes when it degenerates to scientism, lacking form and balance. That very moment when the deficit of aptitude is replenished by buckets of attitude. Many science papers, too many, have been recalled because of falsified data. So much for the scientific method pursued by ambition's phonies. Think of medicine today, forfeiting as many lives as medicine did 100 years ago, or for that matter, 20 years back. No way, and thank goodness. Though it continues to be scary what science pushes, the cutting edge, the state of the art, the new and improved, we the lab rat, participants, attracting, clinical patients, plus that insatiable breed and greed of lawyers salivating to keep up with their do-gooder spiel about malpractice and sue to clean up like vultures. Yet when art and science conjoin and rids itself of artifice and snake oil scientism, they mutually produce aesthetic wonders. Let's take one example. I turn now to the incontestable eye-catching greatness of the German artist Albrecht Dürer. Born in 1471, died in 1528 at age 57. All the way back then, art and science mesh, blending affectionately to produce the magic and majesty of silver point drawing, that is, the method and process of drawing, which employs a silver-pointed instrument on paper prepared with a coating of powdered bone or zinc oxide, creating a fine, durable line composed of metal fragments. One mistake, and one is forced to begin anew. What emerged from the union of art and science in the artist's sure hand created lines that live and breathe and speak as we gape, mesmerized centuries later. Another example of the marriage of art and science is the concert grand piano, before which pianists give reverent and head-bowed thanks. Just stop and imagine for a moment the unrelenting tension exerted on the frame of a modern concert grand. It is 20 tons, while 20 tons of thrust are required to lift a modern jet aircraft into the same space shared by the art of music and the art of science. That space is the limitless sky, that arch of the arts. So yes, I say again, along with Nietzsche and Malraux, the proper task of life is art, for it is a revolt against fate when fate's undisciplined freedoms invite activist chaos and the screeds of nihilism. Consequently, everything should and must be subsumed by artistry, for as I view it, the dynamics of artistry is the union of intellect and intuition wrapped in the magic of our gray matter. In fact, my definition of art, as I promised I'd give you, and feel it incumbent upon myself to impart, is as follows. Art, in toto, is a marriage of great parents, the male of science and the female of art, two well-balanced principles of male gentleness and female strength. This union's exchange keeps culture's potentially naughty children to their respective path and place before any claim to persnickety privilege, and offers and secures safe, sane sanctuary for even said culture's adult, neurotic offspring. Sounds unconvincing. That's only because marriage, in general, is on the rocks. But all great things, said the great novelist Marcel Proust, have come from neurotics. It is they, and only they, who founded religion and created great works of art. And the last time, you may recall, I spoke of the troubled personality of Vincent van Gogh. Nonetheless, his artistry evoked a heightened rationality, whose balanced color, texture, volumes, and rhythms are breathtaking. Indeed, they are musical. And that again proves that all the arts, along with everyday existence, aspire to the condition of music. As my piano has taught me long ago, before the word, there was first the pulse. Hence, most of what I know about myself comes from playing great works of music. That stimulus lent greater impetus to discovering even deeper layers of the thing called self, which it then longs for, and thus is made to search for beauty. That journey gives meaning and validity to our otherwise unstable existence, yours and mine, and reminds us that art is the proper task of life. Consequently, I must look and you must look to art and its love of disciplines to shape our world, for even at its most abstract it remains light years from the abstractions of an artless science, artless when its propositions and proposals have been proven hasty and in constant need of correction unto the horrors and the hokum of the new normal. However, the old undying realities of the Mona Lisa, the Sistine Chapel frescoes, and Beethoven's late string quartets speak to us on and at a sublime summit that can but easily subsume and find divine validity even in parallel universes, now and forever in pulse perpetual. You've heard me say before, and I do so humbly say again, that science is generally given to ironing out the wrinkles of its puzzles, while art pleats the wrinkles and tames error itself with divine and unspeakable beauty. For art continues to extrapolate what we would otherwise not see, hear, touch, nor quite come to imagine. In the wee hours of the morning, when half asleep, I dream of a time in the span yet allotted to me, of politics becoming as an orchestra made up of differently shaped instruments and independent-minded musicians, all tuning up to the traditional pitch of A, above middle C, that tuning being an example of art's ability to pleat and thus absorb error. Were the A pure and tuned and turned to become error-free, as opposed to being tweaked, to be tempered, would be stuck, we would, in one key, unable to budge and modulate to another zone of tonality. Let us say another less partisan opinion. Imagine a group of equals wherein each listens to the other. That is artistry as opposed to political tone-deaf scheming. Congress as an orchestra producing harmony and dissonance, resolutely resolved towards beauty of meaning, form, and substance, would instantly become worthy of its promise forecast by our forefathers. I know it's a dream wish, but I am so tired of unsolved problems which elected officials continue to ignore as they relentlessly kick the tin, noisy can of worms down the road. When, on the other hand, an orchestra teaches all involved to face the music, and I repeat, listen to one another. Think also of jazz and its jam sessions. They are perpetual listening contests where each succeeding soloist competes to transcend their forerunners, while ironically and respectfully incorporating their contribution into the power of the concerted whole. Again, I say wow, for that's American. Would we could get Congress to jam with love of solutions, love of country, not the tin-eared pawns of loveless cronies. Well, I see, my dear listeners, I'm out of time. I began this episode with a reference to a crossword puzzle, and so I wrap up with another crossword-related account. A number of years ago, I discovered an enormous puzzle clue, or I should say an erroneous puzzle clue, which was enormous, which I corrected, notifying by mail the editor of the New York Times crossword puzzle section. He wrote back agreeing and offering an apology for the blunder, which he noted was spotted by me alone. There I go, being immodest again. Consequently, he went on to conclude that he had inducted me into the enviable membership of the Times Gotcha Club. So you see, even hope there is for the Times Gotcha Club indeed, and perhaps hope for our time as well. Just think, art gives us those wow moments that come from wow effects, not the ouch defects. No ouch defects, only wow. And remember that when we flip wow over, we come to the most important word in the universe, mom. Flip wow and it becomes mom, the magic of our origins and meaning. What could be more wonderful than that? Remember, she also serves who only stands and waits with strength and vision and love. That's what art is, and that's what moms should be about. At least they used to. I was lucky enough to have one. And until next time, my friends, please keep the faith.
If you have any comments or other remarks, and that I perhaps could even read on some of these broadcasts, please do not hesitate to write to me, Carmine Arena, P.O. Box 1029, Larchmont, New York 10538.